In Central City, a mysterious guy called the Freezing Alchemist is making weird alchemy circles. King Bradley tells Colonel Mustang to catch him and team up with Edward Elric, the Fullmetal Alchemist. Edward and his brother Alphonse, who's in armor, get ready to help. The army tries to catch the bad guy, but he uses water alchemy to get away and hurt some soldiers. Edward fights him, but the bad guy runs off using circles on his hands. Mustang says the bad guy is Isaac McDougal, who used to work for the government but turned against them. Isaac tries to get another bad guy, Kimberly, to join him, but Kimberly says no. Isaac keeps making circles all over the city for a big plan. The next day, the army looks harder for him. After some fights, Edward and Alphonse figure out Isaac is using a special stone. They stop his plan with help from Mustang and Armstrong. When Isaac tries to run, King Bradley shows up and kills him. Elsewhere, a mysterious woman hears about his death and starts her own secret mission. Edward and Alphonse Elric go on a train to Riol because they heard about a prophet who can do miracles. On the way, they think about what happened before. When they were kids in Rezembul, they learned they were good at alchemy. After their mom died, they tried to bring her back using a forbidden spell. It didn't work, and Edward lost his leg, while Alphonse lost his whole body. Edward gave up his arm to put Alphonse's soul in a suit of armor. Edward also met a weird being called Truth, who showed him a lot of knowledge in exchange for parts of his body. Later, Colonel Mustang came to their house and was surprised by what the brothers had done. Instead of punishing them, he asked Edward to become a state alchemist, thinking it could help them get their bodies back. Edward said yes and got metal arms and legs called automail. He practiced a lot, passed a test, and became the Fullmetal Alchemist. Now, as the train gets to Riol, Edward hopes they can find the Philosopher's Stone, a strong item that might help them fix what happened to their bodies. Edward and Alphonse go to a place called Riol. There, they hear about a guy named Cornello who says he can do amazing things, like bringing people back from the dead. Edward doesn't trust him. They watch Cornello do a miracle and see he's using magic. But it's weird, and not how it's supposed to work. They think he might have a special stone. They meet a girl named Rose who really believes in Cornello. She helps them meet him, but Cornello is scared they'll find out his secret. He tells his men to kill them. The brothers fight back and Cornello shows up. Edward says Cornello is using fake religion and alchemy to trick people. Cornello tells Rose to shoot Edward so he can bring her dead boyfriend back. Rose shoots, but Alphonse is okay. His armor falls off, and everyone sees he has no body. Cornello uses a monster to fight Edward, but Ed wins easily. Cornello realizes the brothers tried to do a bad alchemy trick. They explain it to Rose. Later, Edward tricks Cornello on the radio, making him show his bad plans. Cornello tries to fight, but he loses. His stone breaks, and it's fake. In the end, two bad guys kill Cornello because they used him. In Central City, a state alchemist named Basque Grand is attacked at night and killed by a man with an X-shaped scar. Edward and Alphonse go to East City to see Colonel Mustang and talk about what happened in Riol. They want to know how Father Cornello made a chimera that could talk. Mustang introduces them to Sho Tucker, who created a chimera that once spoke. The brothers study his research. Alphonse plays with Tucker's daughter Nina and their dog Alexander. They become friends. Tucker is worried about his research exam and fears losing his job. However, Nina shows her trust in him, however Tucker still feels stressed. The next day, the brothers play with Nina. Tucker is worried about his exam. In Central City, Hughes and Armstrong investigate the murders of state alchemists and think the killer has left the city. Ed and Al visit Tucker again and find the house silent. Tucker shows them a new chimera that can talk. Ed realizes that Tucker combined Nina and Alexander. Ed is angry and attacks Tucker. Tucker says they both sacrifice others. The brothers report the crime. Ed tells Mustang he will keep going but couldn't save a child. That night, the man with the scar kills Tucker and Nina and prays for them before leaving. After a nightmare, Ed and Al head to the East City police station to ask about Sho Tucker and his daughter Nina. They learn someone killed them, but the killer's identity is a mystery. Meanwhile, chaos erupts in Riol because people think Cornello has returned. However, it's actually envy, working with lust and gluttony to stir up trouble. Back in East City, Scar attacks Ed and Al. He badly damages Al's armor and destroys Ed's automail arm. Ed offers his life to save Al, but Al refuses to let him die. Before Scar can kill Ed, Mustang and his team arrive. They fight Scar together. As they fight, Armstrong discovers Scar's power is a type of alchemy that destroys things. During the battle, they find out Scar is Ishvalan. Scar escapes underground. Later, Mustang explains the Ishval Civil War, and Ed decides to visit his automail mechanic to fix his arm. Edward and Alphonse leave East City with Major Armstrong for safety. On the train, Armstrong sees a man he knows as Dr. Marco, a former state alchemist who runs away. They follow him and find out he's living under a different name, helping sick people with alchemy. Marco tells them he left the army because his work was used in the Ishval War. He shows them a red liquid that's like a weak version of the Philosopher's Stone and warns them about its dangers. The group travels to Rezimbul for Edward's automail repairs. At the Rockbell home, Winry and Pinako fix his arm and adjust his leg. Armstrong learns about the Elric's past, including how their parents died and how Edward burned their house to focus only on his goal. Once his automail is ready, Edward repairs Al's body and promises to leave for Central at sunrise. The next morning, the group departs. Later, Winry wakes up and realizes she forgot to put a small but important bolt in Edward's arm. Edward and Alphonse get to Central City with Major Armstrong. They are surprised to find that the library where Dr. Marco's notes were kept has burned down. Lust and gluttony cause the fire and also attack Scar in the sewers. Colonel Mustang wants to catch Scar to get ahead. Scar is hurt and hiding. In Central, Ed and Al meet soldiers Ross and Brosh, who take them to Sheska, a woman with a great memory. She remembers Marco's notes and writes them down again for the brothers. The notes look like a cookbook, but Ed thinks it's a secret code. After working hard for many days, they figure it out and learn that Philosopher's Stones are made using people's lives. They don't tell anyone else. Armstrong visits them and learns the truth. He remembers Marco's warning about a deeper secret. Ed looks at a map and thinks the fifth laboratory, next to a prison, is where the stones are made. Armstrong tells the boys not to go there, but they secretly go to the lab. Ed goes in through a vent while Al waits outside. Inside, two strange figures sense them, and one attacks Alphonse. Outside Lab 5, Alphonse is attacked by a mysterious man in armor, number 66. Inside, Edward finds a bloody circle used for alchemy and meets another armored fighter, number 48, a killer whose soul is trapped in armor. They fight, and Edward learns that 48 was a prisoner, showing the lab's connection to Central Prison. Meanwhile, Hughes calls Mustang to talk about Scar, while Ross and Brosh realize the Elrics are gone and hurry to the lab. Edward struggles against 48 because his automail is not strong enough, but he wins by destroying part of 48's body. However, 48 says he was two people in one armor, and his brother attacks. Just as Edward is about to lose, he uses Scar's alchemy to beat the second brother. Edward does not want to kill them, saying they are human. The brothers are about to tell secrets about the Philosopher's Stone, but Lust and Envy show up and kill them. Envy knocks Edward out. Outside, 66 tells Alphonse his soul might be fake. Al starts to doubt himself until Ross and Brosh arrive and stop 66. As the lab collapses, Envy brings out Edward and vanishes. Hughes later tells Mustang that Central may promote him, but warns that power brings enemies. Edward wakes up in the hospital and finds out that Laboratory 5 is gone, with no evidence left. He is upset, but Ross tells him off for acting alone. He says sorry and then realizes he needs Winry to fix his broken arm. Winry, feeling bad about forgetting a small bolt, quickly goes to Central City. At the same time, Alphonse is sad and confused after what Barry the Chopper said about his existence. Winry arrives and is shocked to see how hurt Ed is. She fixes his arm without mentioning the missing bolt and lets Ed think he broke it himself. Hughes visits and says Ed's bodyguards will be replaced soon. Winry asks what trouble the brothers are in, but Ed won't tell her. Annoyed, she leaves, but Hughes takes her to his home. There, she enjoys Alicia's birthday party and shares her worries with Hughes. The next day, Al says Ed is lying about his soul. Ed walks away, but Winry scolds Al and explains Ed's guilt and fear. Al says sorry to Ed, and they fight on the hospital roof. After that, they make up and promise to keep fighting for their real bodies. Meanwhile, Scar wakes up hurt in an Ishvalan slum, saved by kind people. Mustang remembers the Ishval Civil War and how it made him want to be in charge to protect people. Hughes also said he would help him, but Hawkeye interrupts his thoughts, reminding him about their move to Central City. At the hospital, Edward tells Alphonse, Hughes, and Armstrong about what happened in Laboratory 5, but they are sad that the lab's destruction makes it hard to find out more. Suddenly, Fuhrer Bradley visits and tells them not to look into the Philosopher's Stone. He says he'll call them when needed, but wants them to stay quiet for now. Winry comes back with train tickets to Dublin, where Ed and Al plan to meet their teacher for help. Since Rush Valley is on the way, Winry goes with them. On the train, Ed says that their teacher might help them get stronger and give answers about the stone. Meanwhile, Hughes finds out bad news about what's been happening and runs to tell someone, but Lust attacks him, and then Envy, who looks like his wife, kills him. His death shocks everyone. At Hughes's funeral, Roy is very sad and starts looking for the truth. He learns there's a big mystery involving Central Command, Hughes's death, and the Elric brothers' journey. Edward, Alphonse, and Winry get to Rush Valley, and Winry is excited by all the automail shops. While they are walking, someone steals Edward's special watch. People in town say the thief is Panina, who steals things and lives in the mountains with a man named Dominic. The group finds Panina and chases her. She tries to get away using her automail legs, which have weapons, but Winry catches her. Panina takes them to Dominic's house, where Winry is impressed to learn he built Panina's automail. She wants to learn from him, but he says no. A rainstorm keeps them at the house. Panina tells how Dominic helped her after she lost her legs. Winry tells her to stop stealing and get money in an honest way. Panina agrees and gives Edward's watch back. Winry opens it and sees a serious message that makes her feel emotional. Suddenly, Satila, Dominic's daughter-in-law, starts having a baby. There is no doctor, so Winry takes charge and helps deliver the baby safely. Edward is moved by the miracle of life, and Winry says she will work harder to help him. Dominic won't let her be his student, but says he will tell a friend about her. Later, the brothers go to Dublin, and Weinrei and Panina say goodbye. Edward and Alphonse go to Dublin and see their teacher, Izumi Curtis. She is mad at Ed for becoming a state alchemist, but then she coughs up blood because she is sick. Her husband, Sig, calms her down, and she lets the boys in. They ask her about the Philosopher's Stone, but she doesn't know much. She did meet a man in Central who knew a lot about it. When she tells them the man's name was Van Hohenheim, Alphonse says that's their father. Edward remembers how their father left them and their sick mother, and he doesn't want anything to do with him. Izumi says Hohenheim said he was close to finishing his work with the stone. Later, Ed remembers when Izumi first met them and made them survive for a month without using alchemy. They learned that everything in the world is connected. She then trained them for 6 months. Ed realizes that Izumi must have also seen the gate. The next day, she tells them her own sad story about losing her child and what she had to do. She comforts the boys, who finally show their feelings and ask her to forgive them. At Central Command, Mustang finds out that Fuhrer Bradley is away on inspection. At the Devil's Nest, Ed and Izumi fight Greed, but he runs away due to her weak health. Soldiers arrive, and Greed joins the other chimeras to escape. Bradley then appears, stopping them. When Greed activates his shield, Bradley cuts off his hand, revealing surprising skill. They fight, and Bradley uses his ultimate eye to defeat Greed, who learns that Bradley is also a homunculus. Meanwhile, Roa fights Major Armstrong in a tough battle. When soldiers try to kill Roa, Dolcetto saves him by creating steam, and they run away. Greed tries to protect his men, calling them his possessions, but Bradley kills them and injures Greed. Martel hides inside Al's armor to escape, but is killed by Bradley, which triggers Al's lost memories of the gate. Later, Bradley questions Ed, Al, and Armstrong. He then visits Izumi and offers her a position, which she refuses. Ed suspects something strange about Bradley's actions and decides to stay in the military. In a secret room, Bradley meets other homunculi. Greed is chained and refuses to rejoin them. Father melts Greed in lava to absorb his powers again. Back home, Bradley acts like a normal father around his son Salim. At night in a big city, Scar fights the silver alchemist Comanche. Scar gets slightly hurt but defeats him quickly. Later, Scar returns to his hideout and meets Mei Chang, a girl from the far eastern land of Xing. She heals Scar's wound using alchemy, a different kind of alchemy. She wishes to find Edward Elric to learn about immortality. Meanwhile, in Central, Barry the Chopper tries to scare Lieutenant Hawkeye, but she stops him easily. Mustang and his team talk to Barry and learn more about the dark secrets of the military. The Elric brothers go to Rush Valley, where Winry repairs Ed's broken automail. They meet a hungry stranger from Xing named Ling Yao, who wants to get the Philosopher's Stone to gain immortality. When Ed and Al don't help, Ling calls 2 strong bodyguards to fight them. After a difficult battle, the brothers win. Later, they find Ling relaxing with Winry's boss and learn he is a prince of Xing. He explains that he wants the stone to help his people and win the throne. Winry decides to travel to Central with the brothers. Ling also sneaks along, while Scar, Mei, and Yoki also begin their own journey towards Central. The Elrics and Winry reach Central City, but Ed feels tired after the long journey while being watched by Fu and Lan Fan. Ling collapses from hunger and is taken by the police for being from Xing without papers. Meanwhile, Mustang's team hides Barry the Chopper in a safe house. Havoc brings food and shares that he now has a girlfriend, which annoys Fallman. At Central Command, Mustang secretly searches for information about Hughes's murder. Envy, disguised as an officer, tricks Sheska into revealing this. Later, Mustang talks to Armstrong and learns he avoided telling the Elrics about Hughes's death to protect their feelings. When Ed and Al run into Mustang, he lies and says Hughes retired. However, Second Lieutenant Ross accidentally reveals the truth, which shocks Ed. He rushes out, blaming himself for Hughes's death. Meanwhile, Winry visits the Hughes home and is warmly welcomed by Gracia and Alicia. The Elrics talk with Gracia, who tells them not to give up. Winry shares her regret that Hughes never got to try her cooking. Later, Envy informs Lust and Gluttony that Mustang is becoming a problem. They plan to control him again. Ross is suddenly arrested for suspicion in Hughes's death, while Havoc unknowingly goes on a date with Lust. Douglas questions Ross about Hughes's murder, showing her a bullet matching her weapon. She explains she fired a bullet during a past mission, but there's no proof. When told that witnesses saw her near the murder scene, Ross says she was visiting family, but her alibi is not trusted. Major Armstrong learns Ross is being framed and feels something is wrong. Meanwhile, Winry worries the Elrics may die like Hughes and wants them to stop chasing danger. Fallman reads about Ross's arrest and tells Mustang. At the prison, Barry breaks in, scares the guards, and frees Ling and Ross, warning her she'll be executed if she stays. While running, Ross meets the Elrics, but Barry tells her to keep moving. She then runs into Mustang, who seems to kill her with fire. The Elrics arrive and are shocked. Mustang claims he only followed orders. Later, Douglas doubts Mustang's actions and thinks he planned the escape to kill Ross. At the hospital, a doctor confirms Ross is dead. Armstrong, now on leave, secretly takes Ed to Reasonbull, leaving Al behind. Barry hides with Fallman, while Ling sends a signal for Fu and Lan Fan. Envy learns Barry is alive, and Lust plans to use Barry's old body to find him. Ed arrives in Reasonbull with Major Armstrong and meets Brita, both in disguise. They travel through the desert to the ruins of Xerxes, where Ed learns more about the origins of alchemy and Ling's goals. There, Ed is shocked to see Maria Ross alive. Armstrong explains Mustang faked her death to protect her. A flashback shows Mustang planned everything, from using Barry to break Ross out of prison to burning a fake body. Ross is now being sent to Xing with Fu to stay safe. She says goodbye to Ed and asks that her parents not be told she is alive. Meanwhile, Ling tells Al and Winry the truth about the plan and his deal with Mustang. Ling also hopes to learn more about hollow bodies through Al since Barry doesn't know. Back at Fallman's apartment, Barry's human body attacks. With help from Havoc and Hawkeye, they drive it off. Barry says he wants to destroy his decaying human body. At the ruins, Ed is attacked by Ishvalans, but saved by an elder named Shan. She tells him about Winry's parents helping Ishvalans during the war and reveals they were killed by Scar. Back in Central, Hawkeye faces danger as Gluttony appears and survives being shot. As Gluttony attacks Lieutenant Hawkeye, Colonel Mustang rushes to help. Meanwhile, Ling tells Al and Winry that everything happening is part of Mustang's plan to find the people behind Laboratory 5. Al decides to help and promises to come back safely. At the tower, Hawkeye fights Gluttony but is almost eaten until Fury and Black Hayate distract him. Mustang arrives and burns Gluttony, saving Hawkeye. They later follow Barry the Chopper, who is chasing his human body, and Al joins them. Al explains that Gluttony might be a homunculus like Greed. Barry leads them to Laboratory 3. Inside, they split into groups. Mustang and Havoc find Lust, who shows her Philosopher's Stone and heals herself. Mustang tries to attack, but Lust cuts a pipe and disables his fire attacks. He creates an explosion using gas and burns Lust, but she recovers and badly injures Havoc and Mustang. Lust then finds Ryza, Al, and Barry. She kills Barry, and Ryza breaks down. Al protects her. Mustang returns, uses fire again, and finally destroys Lust. Mustang and Havoc are seriously hurt, and help is called. Al returns to Winry, who is relieved. Barry's soul is destroyed after his human body scratches out the blood rune. Edward returns to Rasembul and meets his father, Hohenheim. Van Hohenheim visits Trisha's grave and talks to Edward, who gets angry and tells him to leave. When Van says Ed burned their house to run from guilt, Ed storms off. Later, Van watches Ed sleep but leaves without touching him. He then asks Pinocchio if the creature the brothers made looked like Trisha. When she says no, Ed secretly listens and becomes worried that they never brought back their real mother. Meanwhile, in Central, Al explains that his soul in the armor could separate anytime, like a ticking bomb. Winry gets upset when Ling calls it immortality. Later, Al and Winry talk about his past and future. Back in Resembul, Ed has a nightmare and wakes up to learn Van is leaving. Before he leaves, Van warns Pinocchio of coming danger. Ed and Pinocchio dig up the creature's remains and discover it wasn't Trisha. This gives Ed hope that Al's real body still exists. Ed tells Izumi, who confirms her own transmuted child wasn't hers either. In Central, Ed repairs Al and shares everything. Al remembers seeing his body at the gate. They realize Al's soul once entered the wrong body, which caused its failure. Together, the brothers promise to get their bodies back. Roy scolds Riza in the hospital for trusting Lust's words and tells her to stay strong if she wants to stay by his side. He jokes about sharing a room with Havoc instead of having his own room with a nice nurse. They wonder why the homunculi haven't attacked them yet. Envy is angry at King Bradley for letting Roy live, but Bradley says Roy is important for their plan. Meanwhile, Al worries that his body at the gate may be decaying, and Ed thinks their souls got mixed during transmutation, maybe affecting his height. At the hospital, Hawkeye shows a large transmutation circle around Central. They suspect the Führer is connected to the homunculi. Mustang warns Ed to be careful, while Havoc sadly leaves the military due to his injuries. Mustang hopes to find Marco to help cure Havoc. Later, Ed and Al decide to fight Scar to learn the truth and bring out the homunculi. Ling and Lan Fan offer help too. Ed becomes well known in Central by helping people, attracting Scar's attention. A battle begins, and the homunculi arrive. During the fight, Gluttony is attacked, and Bradley reveals his great speed and skills, hurting Lan Fan badly as the others watch in shock. After King Bradley hits Lan Fan, she falls but uses her knife to reduce the damage. She is hurt and unconscious when Ling fights Bradley to save her. Ling shows good sword skills but is forced back by Bradley and Gluttony. Ling realizes Bradley is the Führer, the highest leader. Lan Fan uses a flash grenade to help Ling escape, but Bradley shows his powerful eye and stops him. Meanwhile, Winry visits Mize Hughes' grave and hears that Ed and Al are fighting Scar. Worried, she rushes to them. During the fight, Scar attacks fiercely, and Ed nearly falls, but Al saves him. They talk with Scar about his hatred for alchemists. Scar explains he killed to stop experiments like the one on Nina, a chimera. The Elrics regret not helping her. Winry arrives and hears about her parents, who helped Ishvalans but were killed by Scar. She collapses in grief and picks up a gun to shoot Scar. Scar knows who she is and tells his story of his brother's research, the war, and how he survived after Kimberly killed many Ishvalans, including the Rockbells. Scar warns that hatred will continue unless he is stopped. Ed protects Winry from shooting Scar. Scar hesitates and Al attacks. Ed calms Winry, telling her her hands are meant to help, not hurt. She breaks down crying in his arms. Ling escapes with the injured Lan Fan after using smoke and a grenade to flee from wrath and gluttony. Ed sends Winry with the military police for safety while he joins Al in fighting Scar. Mustang tells Hawkeye to back them up and meet later at a safe place. Lan Fan, badly hurt, cuts off her arm to help Ling escape. Gluttony chases Scar and the Elrics fight him. Ling returns, helps stop Gluttony with a grenade, and ties him up. Wrath finds only Lan Fan's arm, realizing he was tricked. Hawkeye arrives in disguise, shoots Scar, and takes Ling and Gluttony away. A young girl helps Scar escape using smoke and martial arts. In the car, Ling insists on rescuing Lan Fan. As Scar is treated, May realizes her pet is missing, but Al had hidden it inside his armor to keep it safe. At Central, Winry gets a call to return to Rush Valley. She leaves by train and starts to realize her feelings for Ed. The group brings Lan Fan to Dr. Knox, who operates on her. Later, Ling reveals that King Bradley might be a homunculus. The group argues over what to do with Gluttony's Philosopher's Stone. Suddenly, Gluttony breaks free and attacks. At the homunculi's base, Envy brings food to Marco, who refuses to eat. Marco guesses their plan involves a huge transmutation circle using land and people. Envy confirms he's close and threatens his village if he doesn't cooperate. Meanwhile, Wrath and Pride talk about problems like Scar's escape and Gluttony's capture. Wrath also suspects where Gluttony might be. At the safe house, Gluttony becomes a dangerous monster with a strange stomach. Mustang, the Elrics, and Ling try to lead him away. Mustang is too injured to fight, so Hawkeye takes him, Lan Fan, and Knox away. Ed, Al, and Ling stay behind. While fighting Gluttony, Envy appears disguised as a dog. He wants Gluttony back and says Ed and Al are needed for a bigger plan. Envy targets Ling, who fights back using clever tricks. During the battle, Gluttony swallows Ling, Envy, and Ed by accident. Al is left behind and is heartbroken. Knox treats Lan Fan at his home, while Mustang prepares to confront the truth behind the military. He meets with high-ranking officers, only to realize the corruption goes deeper than expected. As Mustang sees the dark side of the military, Ed wakes up in a strange, bloody place. Ed wakes up in a strange place and finds Ling with him. At first, they think the other might be Envy, but after confirming their identities, they realize they are inside Gluttony's body. Ling notices parts of the outside world like a burned car and furniture, which proves where they are. Ed is glad Al wasn't swallowed too and tries to find a way out, but nothing works. Meanwhile, May feels sad after losing Xiao Mei. She shares with Yoki how Xiao Mei helped her survive and reach Amestris. She is on a mission to get a Philosopher's Stone to save her clan. Scar agrees to help her, and she leaves happily with him. Inside Gluttony's body, Ed and Ling grow tired and hungry. Ed even cooks and eats part of his boot. Envy appears and explains they are trapped in a fake version of the gate made by Father. Ed becomes angry when Envy says he started the Ishval War. Envy turns into a huge monster and begins fighting. Meanwhile, Al decides to follow Gluttony to meet Father. At Central, Mustang learns the homunculi control the country. His team is being moved, and Hawkeye is sent to work under Bradley. Ed and Ling prepare to battle Envy with all their strength. Envy keeps attacking Ed and Ling, but Ed hears the cries of souls inside Envy's body, which reminds him of Nina. During the fight, Ed notices ruins from Xerxes in Gluttony's stomach and realizes that they might be able to escape using the Philosopher's Stone inside Envy. Meanwhile, May and Scar follow Al and Gluttony into a secret tunnel. May senses many strange energies underground. They face a large group of chimeras guarding the area and fight back using their powers. May feels the strong presence is even deeper below. As they get closer, Father becomes aware of their arrival. Elsewhere, Bradley tells Mustang that he was raised from childhood for a secret experiment. He was trained in many skills and later injected with a Philosopher's Stone. Only Bradley survived the painful process, losing his left eye and becoming Wrath. Back inside Gluttony, Ed, Ling, and Envy gather pieces of a mural. Ed finds it's a human transmutation circle. He plans to safely break down and rebuild his body to reach the real gate. Before doing this, he asks Envy about Xerxes and learns its people were used to make a stone. Ed's plan works, and he reaches the gate where he sees Al's real body. But the body cannot return without its soul, and Ed promises to come back for him. Gluttony brings Al to a strange underground place where they meet Father, who looks just like Hohenheim. Soon, Envy, Ed, and Ling come out of Gluttony's body. The brothers are happy to reunite, but the mood changes when Father heals their injuries without using equivalent exchange, which surprises them. Ling senses danger and tries to fight, but Father orders Gluttony to eat him. A fight starts, but Father easily stops their alchemy and defeats them. He shows interest in Ling and forces him to become a homunculus by using a Philosopher's Stone. Ling accepts, hoping to gain power, and becomes the new Greed. Ed and Al are shocked when Greed doesn't remember them. Scar and May arrive during the chaos. Scar fights Gluttony and notices his powers still work, unlike Ed and Al's alchemy. May attacks Envy and helps the brothers escape. Ed tells Scar the truth about Ishval, and Scar gets angry and attacks Father. Meanwhile, May is hurt, and Al carries her to safety. They are chased by Gluttony and Envy, but Scar helps them. Envy captures Al, but Scar disappears using a trick. Gluttony's power finally runs out. Ed fights Greed and sees that Ling is still inside. Later, Father takes Gluttony's stone and says he will recreate him. Envy brings Ed and Al back to the surface where they meet Wrath, who they realize is actually King Bradley. They are shocked to learn that Central Command is right above Father's hideout. While alone, Ed tells Al he saw Al's real body at the gate. They meet with Wrath and Mustang, who explains his team has been scattered. Ed wants to quit as a state alchemist, but Wrath threatens to hurt Winry if he does. Wrath allows them to leave but stabs Al's armor, suspecting something. Luckily, May and Xiao Mei are safely hidden inside. Mustang searches for Hawkeye but finds Armstrong. Later, Hawkeye talks with Mustang. The brothers call Winry, but Ed hides the danger she's in. Greed finds them and gives a message from Ling to Lan Fan. Meanwhile, Scar finds Dr. Marco and learns about his part in the Ishval conflict. Al takes May to Dr. Knox for treatment, where Lan Fan also arrives. After learning Ling became Greed, Lan Fan wants a new automail arm to keep helping him. She and May nearly fight, but Knox stops them. Ed realizes only Scar and May could still use alchemy underground. He decides to study their methods to stop Father. Below, Father recreates Gluttony, while Scar demands answers from Marco about the Ishval War. In 1905, young Roy Mustang visits his sick alchemy teacher, Master Hawkeye. The old man refuses to teach flame alchemy, saying Mustang is wasting his talent by joining the military. Roy believes he can help people through the military, but Hawkeye warns him of the danger. Before dying, he asks Roy to care for his daughter, Ryza, who holds the secrets of his research. After the funeral, Roy shares his dream with Ryza, and she supports it. In the present, Ryza remembers her past while talking with Edward Elric. He returns her gun and tells her everything that happened recently. They discuss war, love, and responsibility. Risa begins telling Ed about the Ishval Civil War. The war started in 1901 when an Amestrian soldier killed an Ishvalan child. The conflict turned into a brutal war that lasted 7 years. In 1908, state alchemists, including Roy Mustang, were sent to fight. The destruction was massive. Ryza, Mustang, and others began questioning the morality of their actions. Scar learns from Marco that Ishvalans were used to create a Philosopher's Stone, which was given to Kimbley, the man who killed Scar's family. After the war, Mustang dreams of changing the country. Meanwhile, Scar kills Marco and writes vengeance on the wall in blood. Envy becomes angry after seeing fake bodies and a message from Scar, realizing Scar knows about Dr. Marco's role in the Ishval War. Ed leaves Hawkeye's house and she hints that her new job could help her kill King Bradley. Ed gives her a message from Mustang about Scar and thanks her for explaining the Ishval War. Later, Ed tells Al what he learned, and they wonder what they'll do after finishing their mission. Remembering how Scar and May could still use alchemy, Ed feels hopeful. The next morning, Dr. Knox tells Ed that May has left without saying where. The brothers start searching for her. Mustang's team splits up and says their goodbyes. Hawkeye warns Mustang to be careful. Mustang meets Ed and Al, learns about May, and promises to help. Ed jokes about the 520's dead and says he'll return it once Mustang becomes Führer, hinting he wants him to live long. At their hotel, they find Fu, Lan Fan's grandfather, who has returned. Fu refuses help with automail, not wanting to risk Winry. Later, Dr. Knox is happily reunited with his family. Meanwhile, Kimberly is released from prison by Envy and given a mission. Scar, Marco, and May prepare to head north to continue their plans. Edward and Alphonse search Central City, asking people if they've seen Mei Chang and her small panda, Xiao Mei. Meanwhile, May is seen in East City with a cloaked man heading toward the north area. Scar and Marco escape from the military police in the west area sewers. Later, Kimberly studies Scar's movements and plans to follow him west by train. At Hughes's grave, Roy Mustang meets Lieutenant General Grumman, who is in disguise. They discuss Central Command's secrets, including the idea of immortal soldiers and how Central took control of Real after chaos broke out. Ed and Al visit the Central Library, looking for alchemy info but find nothing. Major Armstrong gives Ed a letter and tells him to go to Fort Briggs in the north, where his sister, General Armstrong, might help. Scar avoids capture again by boarding a train west. In the library, Al is approached by a boy, Salim Bradley, the Führer's son. The Elrics are later invited to the Bradley home, where they meet the friendly family. However, King Bradley's presence reminds them of his threat. Scar and Markshow escape through a forest, staying ahead of Kimberly. Ed and Al board a train to the north area, hoping to find May and finally end the conflict. Kimberly studies the train routes and recent signs of alchemy to follow Scar's path toward the northern mountains. He learns that Scar and a man thought to be Dr. Marco boarded a train to Briggs and decides to chase them alone. On the train, Scar senses danger and finds that Kimberly has arrived. However, the man with Scar is actually Yoki, not Marco. Scar fights Kimberly and manages to injure him, but Kimberly uses his Philosopher's Stone to escape by destroying the train cars behind him. Meanwhile, the real Marco travels with May toward the Briggs Mountains, hoping Scar's fight helped hide their trail. In Rush Valley, Winry learns the Elric brothers have gone north. Ed and Al reach the base of Mount Briggs but get lost in a snowstorm. They are attacked by a huge soldier, Captain Buccaneer, and taken prisoner. Soon they reach Fort Briggs, led by the strong and serious Major General Olivier Armstrong. She allows them in after confirming Ed's identity but warns that only the strong can survive in Briggs. Elsewhere, Marco and May find Scar's hidden box containing notes from Scar's brother. These notes combine the knowledge of Xing and Amistris, giving hope for future discoveries. At Fort Briggs, Edward learns his automail nearly caused frostbite due to the cold. He also discovers why his alchemy failed against Captain Buccaneer's special automail. General Armstrong meets the Elric brothers and demands the truth behind their visit. They give a short version, hiding the homunculi and King Bradley's role. She allows them to stay, mainly because she finds alchemy interesting for military use. Alphonse disagrees with using it as a weapon, but Armstrong reminds him that life near the border is full of danger. Major Miles, an Ishvalan soldier, gives the boys a tour. Edward treats him with respect, unlike most, which surprises Miles. They discuss Armstrong's fairness and how she values loyalty over background. The boys are assigned to remove dangerous icicles and meet Falman, now a second lieutenant. He shows them the fort's lower levels, where strange digging sounds are heard. Suddenly, Sloth, a homunculus, breaks in from underground. He's strong and seems confused about his mission. When Ed and Al try to talk to him, they're suspected again. Armstrong and her team fight Sloth, but normal weapons are useless. Learning he's human-like, Armstrong plans a different tactic, saying she will stop him using the full power of Fort Briggs. General Armstrong orders her team to stop Sloth. Ed, Al, and Falman help carry fuel, and Sloth is pushed into an elevator. Outside, the group pours fuel on him. Armstrong arrives with a tank and blasts Sloth through the gate into the snow. The special fuel weakens him in the cold, and he passes out. Armstrong decides to keep him frozen and locks up the Elrics until they tell her the truth. The next day, Ed wakes up in a cell. Soldiers thank him for saving them. Meanwhile, Miles visits Kimberly in the hospital and warns him not to act proud in Briggs. General Raven then arrives with a doctor to help Kimberly recover quickly. Elsewhere, May explains to Dr. Marco how alchemy works through a flow called the Dragon's Pulse. Marco starts to understand how her alchemy is different from Amestrian alchemy, which he believes uses energy from the Earth's crust. But May says that energy feels dark, like something under the ground. Back at Briggs, Armstrong learns Sloth came from a large tunnel. She rides in with the Elrics and others. Deep inside, Ed explains everything about the homunculi and the huge circle across the country. They realize Amistris was made only to create a Philosopher's Stone. Hohenheim remembers the lives taken by the Philosopher's Stone inside him. Long ago, he feared passing his curse to his family, but later wished to grow old with them. He leaves home without telling his sons the truth. In the present, he looks at their family photo near a campfire, hoping for a little more time. Meanwhile, in the tunnel Sloth dug, a Briggs team is killed by a shadowy figure. At the fort, Armstrong secretly listens to Lieutenant General Raven talk about immortal soldiers. She pretends to agree while planning to learn more. Raven is interrupted by news of the lost team, and Armstrong is ordered not to investigate. The Elrics act like prisoners as part of the plan. Later they meet Kimberly, who mocks Ed's height. Raven brings Sloth inside, calling him a secret weapon. At the same time, Scar finds May and Marco, and they decide to hide elsewhere. Raven claims the Ishval War helped their plan. When Raven offers Armstrong power, she tricks and kills him. His body is buried in cement. Armstrong contacts Miles secretly while Kimberly prepares to leave. He surprises the Elrics by bringing Winry, saying the Führer is watching. Mustang later gets a secret message from Armstrong through a flower cellar. Kimberly's guards arrive at Fort Briggs pretending to protect Winry. Major Miles gets suspicious of Kimberly's real plan. In the infirmary, Winry starts fixing Ed's automail for cold weather. She scolds him for not telling her about his arrest, but Kimberly lies, calling it a misunderstanding. Ed warns Winry not to trust Kimberly, but she remembers him praising her parents and sees him as kind. Ed tries to explain more but gets shy. Winry finishes the lighter but weaker automail and later tours the fort's research area. With Winry distracted and Ed's limbs fixed, Kimberly wants to talk business. Meanwhile, Buccaneer and his team go into a tunnel under the fort to search for missing men. They find dead bodies and 2 survivors who warn about a shadow monster. The shadow almost attacks but suddenly leaves. In Central, Hawkeye visits Bradley's home and meets Selim, who reveals himself as Pride, the first homunculus. He threatens her but doesn't hurt her. Back at Briggs, Kimberly gives Ed 3 tasks: find Scar, find Dr. Marco, and create destruction at Briggs. Ed refuses the third but pretends to agree for now. Winry joins Ed and Al's mission, claiming she needs to check his automail, but secretly wants to help. Lieutenant Hawkeye feels uneasy after learning Selim is really a homunculus named Pride. Colonel Mustang calls her using a code, but she avoids talking. In the north, Major Miles tells Kimberly that Scar might be hiding in Bascoul. The Elric brothers trick Kimberly's men and hide. Luckily, May finds them. She thinks they came for love, but they really want to learn alchemy. Winry, who was hiding inside Al, is let out. Dr. Marco appears with a changed face, and Yoki tells his silly backstory. The group ignores him and focuses on their goals. Kimberly notices Winry is missing. Meanwhile, Scar fights 2 chimeras, Jerso and Zampano. The Elrics arrive and act like they don't know them to attack. Using smart moves and teamwork, they defeat the chimeras. Scar then faces the brothers but can't destroy Ed's new automail. Winry suddenly steps in, distracting Scar. Al pins him, and Miles arrives. He wants to arrest Scar, but Winry asks to speak with him. Scar quietly accepts his guilt. Back at Briggs, Buccaneer returns safely thanks to Armstrong's plan. Later, a military team arrives with serious demands. At Bascoul, explosions happen. Ed pretends Scar has taken Winry, and she is seen in Scar's arms on a rooftop. Scar stands on a rooftop holding Winry, which angers Kimberly below. Edward blames Kimberly for not protecting her. Scar uses the distraction to escape. Earlier, Scar admits his crimes to Winry and accepts her right to hate him, but she calmly treats his wounds. Ed says he still wants justice, and Miles explains to Scar that he joined the military to change how people see Ishvalans. Scar finds hope in Miles' words and agrees to help with decoding his brother's research. Since Fort Briggs is no longer safe, Miles suggests hiding Scar, Winry, Marco, and May until they understand the notes and the nationwide transmutation circle. Winry chooses to fake being Scar's hostage to fool Kimberly. The plan works, and Scar escapes with the group through old mining tunnels. Meanwhile, Gerso and Zampano, the two chimeras, are spared and decide to help. In the tunnels, May worries about the Philosopher's Stone, fearing her emperor would misuse it, but Marco hopes to find another way. Back at the base, Miles learns that the fort is now under enemy control. With no time to stop the group, Al decides to go after them through the snow. On the way, he sees his real body and fears his soul might be rejected. Meanwhile, Father prepares for his final plan. Olivier Armstrong arrives in Central City, suspected of killing General Raven. She meets Führer Bradley and admits her actions, saying Raven was careless with important secrets. She offers to join the Führer's plan and gains a position at Central, giving up control of Fort Briggs. Meanwhile, her loyal soldiers at Briggs believe in her strength and mission. In the capital, Roy Mustang and Hawkeye exchange secret messages using coded gestures. Hawkeye warns Roy that Selim Bradley is actually a homunculus. Elsewhere, deep underground, Father recalls events from the past. In ancient Xerxes, a young slave named Van Hohenheim meets a strange creature inside a flask who names himself Homunculus and gives Van knowledge. Over time, Van becomes a skilled alchemist, but Homunculus tricks the king of Xerxes into sacrificing the entire population to gain immortality. Both Homunculus and Van become living Philosopher's Stones, sharing the souls of the dead. In the present, Hohenheim meets Izumi and heals her damaged body. He reveals that he is a human-shaped Philosopher's Stone. Up north, Edward tells Miles about the Philosopher's Stone's cruel origins and says Kimberly owns one. He hopes to never see a bigger one, knowing how many lives are dos arts equus. Scar, Winry, Yoki, Dr. Marco, May, Gerso, and Zampano travel through mines. Winry finds some soaked dynamite, which Yoki says won't explode. Scar urges them to hurry before being caught. At Fort Briggs, Major Miles orders his men to prepare to kill Kimberly and his group, keeping it secret from new soldiers. Ed disagrees with killing and wants to capture Kimberly for questioning, but Miles insists Kimberly is too dangerous to live. Ed suggests using chimeras to help, but Miles doubts it. In the mines, the group studies notes about immortality and gold. May explains the connection to the perfect person, related to a Western sage with gold hair and eyes, like Ed and Al. Yoki finds the exit, but the snow is deep. May rides on Zampano's shoulders, and they clear a path. They find Al, who warns that Central has taken Fort Briggs and Major Armstrong is called to Central Command. Scar leads them to a safe town nearby. Miles prepares snipers to stop Kimberly near the mines. Ed tries to talk to Kimberly, who knows their plan and uses alchemy to create a snow mist to hide. Ed fights the two chimeras with him but is at a disadvantage. He uses ammonia gas to knock them out and confronts Kimberly. Kimberly hides a Philosopher's Stone in his mouth and causes a big explosion, trapping Ed and the chimeras. Ed is badly injured but uses alchemy to stop his bleeding. The chimeras decide to help Ed find a doctor and leave the mine together. In a cold northern house, Yoki, Gerso, and Zampano stay warm by a fire, while May, Dr. Marco, and Scar try to read Scar's brother's notes. Al wakes up to find his armor taken apart. Winry explains they had to do that to fit him inside. As they put him back together, May finds a new clue by reordering the notebook pages. She discovers that the notes talk about a giant circle being made around Amistris. Al believes more secrets are hidden in the pages. A sneeze flips the pages, helping Al spot a second array, but this one is based on alchemy. Meanwhile, Kimberly loses Scar's trail and ends up in Sloth's tunnel. Pride appears and tells him to go to Fort Briggs and make a blood mark there. At Briggs, the team learns that Ed, Kimberly, and the Chimeras are missing. Breda and Falman share updates, wars are breaking out, and something dangerous is happening under Amistris. At the same time, Sloth finishes the countrywide transmutation circle. In Riol, Hohenheim visits a church and finds a secret tunnel. Pride attacks, but Hohenheim escapes and sends a message to Father. At Briggs, Drachma begins its attack, with Kimberly helping them. In Azbek, Zampano secretly informs Wrath and Envy of Marco's location. At Fort Briggs, the Drachma army is defeated by strong cannon attacks. Their commander dies, angry that Kimberly lied about inside help. Kimberly completes his real mission by creating a blood mark. In Azbek, May teaches Al about the dragon's pulse, but he doesn't understand. Meanwhile, Zampano secretly brings Envy, disguised as an Ishvalan, to their hideout. But it's a trap. May uses hidden alchemy to attack Envy with ice. Envy becomes huge and tries to kill Marco, but the others fight back. Finally, Marco uses a special transmutation and destroys Envy's Philosopher's Stone, reducing him to a small green slug. Envy is captured in a jar. Marco explains he acted on his own for once. When Envy tries to use Yoki as a hostage, no one cares, and they threaten him instead. Envy then reveals Ed is missing. Al stays strong and says they must keep moving. Scar decides to go on a personal journey with Marco to help change Amistris. He gives May the jar with Envy and asks her to return to Xing. The group splits up. In Central, Olivier learns about an army of artificial soldiers. Al's group reaches Riol and meets Rose. She is surprised to see Al again, and Hohenheim also appears. Hohenheim is glad to see Alphonse and wants to talk more later, as he helps rebuild Riol. The food stall owner tells Al their radio is working well, and although Riol suffered, people are happier since Cornello's lies were exposed. Al leaves Winry with Rose and joins the workers. When asked if Al is his son, Hohenheim says Al might not forgive him, but Al shows up to help anyway. Winry and Rose talk, and Rose learns Winry is Ed's friend and made his automail. Rose shares how Ed and Al helped her restart her life after her boyfriend's death. In Central, Bido sneaks into a secret lab and hears that the army plans to fill lifeless bodies with stolen human souls. Scared, he runs and finds Greed, not realizing he has changed. Meanwhile, Hohenheim tells Al that their enemy was created using his body as a model. Al is shocked to learn his father is a living Philosopher's Stone. In North City, Ed is recovered and escapes the military with help from Darius and Heinkel. Back in Central, Greed kills Bido but starts remembering his old friends, which causes him pain. Ling's soul inside him tell. Greed fights Wrath inside the executive mansion while Mrs. Bradley and Pride watch. Greed struggles with memories of his old friends and barely escapes using his shield. The next morning, Olivier visits her family home and forces her father to give her control. She fights her brother Alex for the title and wins, though she secretly plans to use her position against Central. In Usewell, May treats Envy like a harmless creature, but he tricks her into going back to Central. Ed, with Darius and Heinkel, reaches Mustang's old hideout but finds Alphonse missing. They meet Ling, who explains Greed left the other homunculi. Before Greed takes over again, Ling mentions a mysterious event called the Promised Day. Ed convinces Greed to team up by becoming his henchman. Elsewhere, Al leaves a message for Izumi about the Promised Day. She gets arrested on purpose to reach Fort Briggs and pass on the warning. The message spreads to General Grumman, then to Riza through her friend Rebecca. Riza secretly informs Mustang by hiding a note in a fake cigarette. The message reveals that the Promised Day will come in spring. Across the country, everyone begins preparing for it, including Scar, Marco, May, and the remaining homunculi. Spring arrives, and a train from Fort Briggs brings soldiers to Rezembul. Two of them secretly deliver Winry to the Rockbell house, where she finds Edward hiding with Greed, Darius, and Heinkel. After a brief argument, Winry tells Ed that Alphonse is on a train to Central. She also shares news about Hohenheim and urges Ed to meet him in Kanema. When Ed tells her to escape before the promised day, she refuses and insists he return safely with Al. That night, Ed promises her he will stop the enemy's plan. Meanwhile, Scar and Dr. Marco return to Riol and decide to head to Central with a group of Ishvalans. In the east, General Grumman and Miles prepare to attack Central, but they are surprised when Führer Bradley appears to oversee their activities. Grumman secretly plans to remove him, and later Bradley's train is blown up by Eastern soldiers. The team believes he is dead and prepares to support Mustang. In Central, Alphonse is captured by Pride, who holds him until the promised day. Mustang secretly gives Armstrong information about Selim Bradley. The Central generals panic after hearing about the Führer's death, but Father appears with Sloth, showing that their real enemy is still in control. Alphonse hears a strange voice in a dream, telling him it's not time to die. Meanwhile, Edward and his group reach Kanama and meet Hohenheim. Ed punches him but listens to his story about the promised day and Father's plan. Hohenheim wants to work together, but Ed chooses to fight in his own way. Later, Ed gives him a message from Panico, which makes Hohenheim emotional. Though his team advises him to talk properly with his father, Ed refuses. Hohenheim remembers Trisha and promises to return. Ed then creates a new red jacket for the final battle. As the group leaves, Alphonse appears, but Ling warns them to stay away since Pride is controlling Al's body. Pride attacks using shadows. Greed confirms it's really Pride, and a fight begins. Ed makes the area dark to weaken Pride, and Heinkel finds his real body, Selim Bradley. Meanwhile, Gluttony appears, revealing he tracked them by smell. Darius fights Gluttony, and Greed switches with Ling, who defeats Gluttony temporarily. However, Gluttony changes into his true form. Before he can attack again, a masked fighter with a metal arm defeats him. Gluttony recognizes her scent. It's Lan Fan, who has returned with a new automail arm. Lan Fan uses her new automail arm to slice Gluttony, while Ling helps with punches. Greed, inside Ling, is happy to see them winning. Meanwhile, Fu explains how he and Lan Fan followed strong chi signals to find the group. Fu says they can help in the dark thanks to their training. Ed figures out that one of the strong chi signals is from Pride and the other from Hohenheim, but he chooses to focus on the fight. Even though Lan Fan is still new to her automail, she shows she can fight well. Ed teams up with Fu to help Heinkel, who is struggling against Pride, especially as the lights in the town start coming back on. Elsewhere, Mustang learns from Madame Christmas that Selim Bradley has been alive for decades and is not human. Pride uses the light from a lantern to wound Heinkel and start a fire. Ed arrives in time to protect him. Madame Christmas and Mustang escape through a sewer as government agents close in. Mustang later meets his team underground and prepares for the next phase. In battle, Ed uses special bombs to weaken Pride. Gluttony is forced to flee but is later eaten by Pride to gain his powers. Mustang's group captures Mrs. Bradley. Pride tries to capture Ed to use him as bait, but Ed, Lan Fan, and Greed fight back. Lan Fan's automail malfunctions and Ed saves her just in time. Meanwhile, Al wakes up and learns from Hohenheim that the homunculi are clones of Hohenheim's clone, which explains how Pride controlled him. Fu arrives with the injured Heinkel and explains that Pride has eaten Gluttony. Since Firelight makes Pride stronger and flash bombs are gone, they need a new plan. Al decides to trap Pride using his hollow body, which doesn't need food or air. Hohenheim helps by sealing them both inside a light-proof dome. Outside, Ed is surprised to hear the plan was Al's idea. Al apologizes but believes this is the best way to help. Elsewhere, Greed wants to take over the country and Scar's group continues moving. Kimberly kills some Ishvalans, showing he's still active. Al and Pride talk inside the dome. Pride admits some humans like Miss Bradley cared for him, even though he isn't human. Mustang visits Hughes's grave while Scar's group meets with Ed's group. Fu goes ahead to Central to scout. As Mustang's group begins their move, they are ambushed. Central's officers order to kill everyone except Mustang. Even Mrs. Bradley is no longer safe. Gunfire is heard. Central soldiers try to shoot Mustang's team, but Roy's hidden allies save them. Mrs. Bradley gets confused, unsure if her husband betrayed her or was betrayed. Roy promises her safety. As more enemies arrive, Mustang clears the path with his fire and they escape. Meanwhile, General Clement's angry Mustang keeps escaping, and even more annoyed that Mustang's team has injured many without killing anyone. Major General Armstrong mocks Central's weak defense and reveals her Briggs soldiers can fight without her. Just then, Briggs' forces led by Buccaneer begin their attack in the city, surprising everyone. Mustang's team is low on bullets, but Rebecca and Maria Ross arrive with weapons in an ice cream truck. Ross connects them to Jean Havoc, who now runs a secret supply line. Outside Kanema, Ed's group sees signs of battle in the capital and prepares to move. Scar suggests a tunnel route. Al stays behind to trap Pride, while Ed goes to fight. May races to Father's base with Envy. Olivier kills one general and captures another, refusing to stand by as lives are sacrificed. Meanwhile, Fu senses a strong energy underground. In the lair, Father spreads his power, and Ed's group enters through Laboratory 3. The mannequin soldiers are finally activated. Under Central Command, a general releases immortal mannequin soldiers despite a scientist's warning that tests aren't done. The general orders them to attack Mustang's rebellion, but is killed by the mannequins. The scientist tries to stop them, but is also killed. Meanwhile, Ed and his group reach Father's lair, where they find Barry the Chopper's decayed body. Scar breaks the door, and mannequins come out. At Central Command, Major General Armstrong captures the wounded general and demands he pull back his troops. When soldiers threaten her, she wounds the general to force him to listen. The general closes all gates to block Mustang's forces, but Sloth kills the general. Armstrong prepares to fight Sloth. Ed's group fights the mannequins, realizing they hold human souls. They seal the door to keep the mannequins inside. Outside, Mustang's team faces new challenges. Elsewhere, Heinkel, injured, hears Pride making a helmet but is attacked by Kimberly, who helps Pride. May runs with Envy, but Envy's jar breaks, and he is eaten by a mannequin. He takes control, restores himself, and thanks May. Al helps Heinkel escape from Pride. Armstrong is saved by her brother Alex, who fights Sloth with powerful attacks. Al repairs his armor and readies to fight after a Philosopher's Stone reaction. Al uses the Philosopher's Stone to fight Pride and Kimberly. He makes smoke clouds and uses smart tricks to dodge attacks. He turns an old metal foot into a sword to fight, but Pride keeps breaking free. Al finally traps him again using flash bombs. Kimberly wonders why Al didn't use the stone to fix his body, and Al says it's about helping others, not just himself. Kimberly shows he also has a stone. Meanwhile, Alex and Olivier fight Sloth. He is super fast and strong. They find his weak spot is under his skin, but he still overpowers them. Pride later captures Al, but Heinkel attacks Kimberly and saves him with help from Dr. Marco's healing stone. Yoki drives in with a jeep, helping them escape. Pride then absorbs Kimberly's body to stay alive. At Central, Mustang's group moves secretly by changing the truck's look. Ed's team still fights the mannequins. Olivier and Alex are badly hurt but continue the fight. The soldiers around them learn that the mannequins are the real threat, not Mustang's people. Underground, May escapes from Envy and the mannequins. She plans to use the stones in them to help her people. Finally, Mustang breaks into the room to save Ed. Rumors of Colonel Mustang's rebellion spread through Central, shocking people when they hear a live radio broadcast from Mrs. Bradley and Mustang's team. She tells the public that Central soldiers tried to kill her and Mustang saved her. The team claims the Führer's train was bombed and he is now missing. This shocks Ms. Bradley and gives people hope that Mustang is acting to protect the country. Even though a general tries to stop the broadcast, it continues, helping more people support Mustang. At the same time, a Briggs tank attacks Central Command from the Armstrong mansion. Underground, Mustang joins Edward's team and burns the mannequin soldiers with his fire alchemy. Envy falls into the area with May and the others. He tries to cause trouble by insulting them, but they ignore him. Mustang confronts Envy and forces him to admit he killed Hughes. This makes Mustang furious. He attacks Envy with strong flames. Envy runs away and tries to trick Mustang by turning into Hughes's wife, but Mustang keeps attacking. Edward and Scar worry that Mustang's anger will destroy him. While chasing Envy, Mustang is tricked again. Envy pretends to be Hawkeye. When the real Hawkeye appears, she suddenly points her gun at Mustang from behind. In 1909, after the Ishval War, Roy Mustang finds Riza Hawkeye burying a child. She feels guilty for helping in the war using the flame alchemy she gave him from her father's notes, which are tattooed on her back. To stop anyone from creating another flame alchemist, she asks Roy to burn the tattoo, and he agrees. In 1915, while searching for Envy, Riza points a gun at someone pretending to be Roy. She tricks the fake Mustang, shoots Envy, and fights him bravely but gets caught. The real Roy arrives just in time, burns Envy's body until only a small form remains, and is ready to kill him. Riza stops him, afraid revenge will destroy him. Ed and Scar also beg Roy to stop, saying a hateful leader would bring ruin. Riza says if Roy goes too far, she will kill him and herself. This makes Roy step back and apologize. Envy tries to turn them against each other but fails. Edward realizes Envy is jealous of humans. Feeling ashamed, Envy takes his own life. Meanwhile, at Central Command, Alex Armstrong fights Sloth, regains his strength, and attacks back. On the surface, Brig soldiers and Izumi Curtis help take over the headquarters. Deep underground, Hohenheim confronts Father. Ed and his group move through the underground to find Father, though they are unsure of the path. When Mustang says they are lost, Ed gets angry, but Scar tells them to stay quiet to avoid being found. Outside, Brig soldiers stop firing on Central after taking control. Izumi uses this moment to dig into Central from underground. Olivier tells Buccaneer to stop the mannequin soldiers from escaping. These creatures soon kill a general and attack the Armstrong siblings. Sloth appears again and injures them, but Izumi and her husband Sig arrive and help. Together with Alex, they defeat Sloth, whose body dissolves after using all his energy. Olivier thanks Izumi and decides to keep fighting. She and Alex agree to support the younger fighters. Izumi plans to leave soon, being one of the sacrifices. Meanwhile, Hohenheim faces Father, who attacks him but fails to absorb his Philosopher's Stone. In Central, Al's jeep gets stuck as a strange man passes nearby, King Bradley. Buccaneer helps fight mannequins, and Izumi saves General Edison. Olivier finds stairs to the mannequin area, and as Brig soldiers start celebrating, they hear Bradley's voice. He announces his return and prepares to take Central back, heading straight for them. Long ago, Hohenheim wandered the desert, tired and alone, thinking about the souls from Xerxes. He was found by Qing merchants who saved him. In the present, those souls inside Hohenheim help him fight Father by attacking from within Father's body. Father tries to resist, but Hohenheim says they will destroy his container. Father changes form and plans to become perfect by using a huge eye in the ceiling. Meanwhile, King Bradley, Wrath, returns and attacks Central. He easily defeats Brig soldiers and destroys their tank. He badly injures Buccaneer and tells Falman to open the gate, but Falman refuses. Greed arrives to help, surprising Wrath. Greed and Wrath fight while Brig soldiers struggle to hold their ground. At the radio station, soldiers feel worried about the Führer's return and blame the uprising on Olivier Armstrong to protect Mustang. Ross and Fury prepare for more trouble outside. Greed, with Ling's help, tries to find Wrath's weak spot but is overpowered. Buccaneer sacrifices himself to stop Wrath's sword. Greed fights again, but Wrath uses new knives. Reinforcements come, but Fu stops them with smoke bombs. He joins the fight to protect Ling and is shocked to learn Wrath is the man who hurt his granddaughter. Lan Fan hears soldiers say that Wrath has returned, and she quickly understands he is at the main gate. Fu also realizes that Wrath is King Bradley, the one who hurt Lan Fan. In the Führer's office, Izumi and General Armstrong force Edison to admit the dark plan to sacrifice the people of Amistris to make a Philosopher's Stone and unite the world. Some soldiers hesitate, but after hearing the truth, they take off their ranks and decide to stand against the plan. Izumi and Armstrong prepare to escape through a tunnel. Elsewhere, Ed's group meets the gold-toothed doctor, who created Bradley. He summons failed human soldiers to fight, and chaos begins. In the battle at the gate, Wrath injures Fu badly, but Fu tries to stop him with bombs. The plan fails, but Buccaneer stabs Wrath using his own sword through Fu's body. Both warriors fall, and Fu dies. Greed damages Wrath's eye, and Lan Fan arrives just in time to see her grandfather's death. Inside Central, Al's group notices smoke and rushes in. The doctor completes a circle that shakes the area, and the sacrifices Ed, Al, and Izumi are suddenly taken away when a strange gate appears. Olivier stays behind to fight as the final battle begins. The doctor wants Mustang to use human transmutation to save Hawkeye, but Mustang says no. The doctor says the zombie soldiers are loyal because he made them, but Mustang stays calm, and Jerso catches the doctor. May and Zampano help beat the zombies. Mustang uses fire to help Hawkeye, and May stops her bleeding. Wrath comes and takes the Philosopher's Stone. He is hurt, but still strong. Mustang fights him, but Wrath traps his hands. Pride uses shadows to make Mustang open the gate, and Mustang loses his eyesight. Scar blocks Wrath with a shockwave. Mustang becomes the fifth sacrifice. Ed thinks it's not fair that Mustang lost his vision. Scar and Wrath start fighting. May finds Al's body. Inside the gate, Al meets his weak human body. Al decides not to go back to it now. He promises to return later. Al wakes up in the real world. Now, Father is ready to start his plan. Central sends an unarmed soldier, Denny Brosh, to talk to Maria Ross. Ed and the others are trapped inside Father's body. May gets ready to fight Father, while Ed and Al fight Pride. May gets hurt when she touches Father. The eclipse starts, and Scar's group puts symbols around Central. Scar fights Wrath and hurts him with his new alchemy. Ed tells Al to protect May. Al stops Father and hits back. Ed keeps fighting Pride and breaks part of his face. But Father grabs all 5 sacrifices and starts the ritual. Above, everyone is scared as the sky gets dark. Father uses the sacrifices to get godlike power. As energy spreads, everyone passes out and their souls are taken away. Big gates open in the sky. Father, now huge, grabs God's power, and a bright light covers the land. In the past, Ed and Al read a book about the sun and moon creating a perfect being. Now, Father takes God and uses the lives of many people to become stronger. The country goes silent as everyone falls, but the 5 human sacrifices wake up. Father looks like a young Hohenheim and shows off his powers. Hohenheim had a plan to weaken Father by using souls in the ground. Scar defeats King Bradley. Then he uses a special circle that lets alchemists use earth energy again. Ed and the others fight Father, trying to take his Philosopher's Stone. Greed helps, but Father runs away. Ed fights Pride, who tries to steal his body. Kimberly's soul speaks out, saying Pride has lost his honor. Ed wins and defeats Pride, who becomes a baby. Ed carries him away to return to the fight. Father wants to turn more soldiers into a Philosopher's Stone, but Hohenheim, Alphonse, Izumi, and May stop him. Hohenheim says humans can create, but homunculi only destroy. Father tries to prove him wrong by making human-like figures from Xerxes' souls. Edward arrives, and Father destroys them. Armstrong builds a platform to take everyone up. Reed tells the others to stay back if they get hurt. Olivier wants to fight, but she is told to rest. Roy, even though he can't see, plans to attack Father with Hawkeye's help. On the surface, many join the fight, but Father easily defends himself. Greed attacks Father, hoping to take his power, but Father takes Greed's instead. Edward, Izumi, and Armstrong attack to save him. Father's body starts to lose control. When Edward gets stuck, Al gives up his soul to give Ed his right arm back. Now Edward can use both hands to fight. Edward attacks powerfully. Everyone cheers. Greed realizes he wanted friends, not power. Edward defeats Father. Edward fights Father without using alchemy, which surprises Father, who has a lot of power. Even after getting hurt, Father tries to stay alive by taking Greed's Philosopher's Stone. Ling tries to stop him, but Greed lets Father absorb him to save Ling. But Greed makes Father weak from the inside. Lan Fan cuts off Father's arm, and Greed turns to dust, happy he had friends. Edward punches a hole in Father, letting all the trapped souls go. Father is taken into the gate and punished for wanting power without learning. In the real world, Alphonse is not moving. Ling offers Ed the Philosopher's Stone, but Ed says no. Hohenheim wants to give his life, but Ed refuses again. Ed gives up his alchemy to bring Al back. Al wakes up and everyone is there. Ed gives Pride back to Ms. Bradley and the country is safe. Hohenheim dies at Trisha's grave, happy for his life with his family. Colonel Mustang wants to fix Ishval, even though he can't see. Dr. Marco gives him a Philosopher's Stone, and Mustang takes it to help Ishval, but he wants to heal Havoc first. At the Armstrong home, Scar gets better, and Miles asks him to help rebuild Ishval's culture and religion. Scar says yes, but says he doesn't have a name anymore. Edward and Alphonse go back to Rezembul together. Ling says he will protect all the clans in Xing, and he and May go back home. Winry is very happy to see the Elric brothers back and safe. 2 years go by. Edward works without using alchemy, and Alphonse tells him that Winry made a pie. Grumman becomes the leader, saying how much Mustang and Armstrong helped the country. Salim, who is now kind, lives with Mrs. Bradley, even though he still has the homunculus mark. Alphonse visits Gracia and Alicia, then plans to go to Xing with Gerso and Zampano to learn alkahestry. Edward goes west to learn alchemy from other places. At the train station, Edward says goodbye to Winry. Later, pictures show everyone's lives getting better. Edward and Winry get married, have kids, and live happily while Al goes home with May.